Okay guys, good morning. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for being here. So I'm just going to give you guys a really quick update on my bread making situation. It's been so easy. This Hamilton Beach mini bread maker is like A+, amazing. I love it. So easy to use. You just need very few ingredients. It's worked out perfectly. So loaf number 1 was French loaf. So I think I put too much flour because my measuring cup, I wasn't looking at the lines properly, so I was putting a little bit too much flour. B, my yeast was not good. I know, not a good combination, right? So the yeast had expired. I didn't realize that. So that loaf was very dense. It was still edible, but just wasn't good. So got rid of that, no big deal. I didn't lose hope because it was the yeast that was wrong, so fine. Made another French loaf. Worked out perfectly. I'm going to put it into this video. So my second loaf was a regular organic loaf, just totally plain. It's just organic flour, very simple ingredients, sugar and salt and yeast. That's it. I made it oil-free, even though my recipe called for oil. It called for like 1/3 of a cup or 1/4 of a cup. I think it was 1/3. I was like, whoa, that's a lot. I think it gives it that like extra moisture. Anyway, we don't need that. So did not add that in. Still worked out perfectly. Recipe is amazing. Everyone loved the bread. So yeah, the loaf turned out perfect and I sliced it up. It's fantastic. I really like the fact that I got the mini one because the big one, like who's going to eat all that bread? We're not going to eat all that bread. So at least with the mini one, I can just make what we need and that's it. And it's fresh and delicious. So yeah, overall, I really like this bread maker and I'm so happy that I got it and it's been really working out wonderfully. So I'm going to show you guys the 2 loaves that I made and that way you can see. And honestly, I just followed the instructions that came with it. It came with like a whole book with recipes. So I'm like, oh, perfect. I don't even have to look on the internet. And I just followed the French recipe and then the regular loaf. The only thing I modified was again, the oil. I'm not putting oil into my bread. So yeah, that's it. And it worked out. So thanks for watching guys and thanks for being here for my bread maker adventures. And again, thank you for the tips. For those of you that left me tips, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And then if you have other tips, please leave them in the comments below and that way I can learn with you guys. Thanks so much. So guys, here is my really simple little mini bread maker. Super easy. This container is really easy to put in and out. It locks in place. You just basically put all your ingredients in the order of the recipe. And like I said, I'm using the recipe that came with the Hamilton Beach bread maker. Very easy. Their recipes are quite simple. You don't need a lot of ingredients, which is great. Just your flour and then of course your water and your yeast and salt and sugar. Basically that is it. And there is a recipe later on you're going to see when I do my sliced regular bread. It does call for oil and I did not put that in and it still worked out perfectly. So each recipe is a little different, but it's around 3 hours that this thing is running. So I try to use my bread maker when the electricity is cheaper in the evening, and that's when I do my laundry and everything else. So I also decided to make my bread when the energy is a little bit cheaper. So yeah, and yes, 3 hours is long, but it's the whole kneading process, preparing the dough to be baked, and then it's also including the warming. So it warms for an hour after it's already baked. So it also includes that time in the total. So yeah, that's, you know, it is quite a process, but you go about your day or, you know, go to sleep for the night and it does its thing and it's wonderful. So in no time at all, you know, when I realized it's done, I just take it out, let it cool off a little bit before I take it out of the container because it is really hot when it comes out. And like I said, the container comes out really easily and then the bread comes out super easy as well. So I think I actually added a little bit too much flour to this French loaf just because the container that I was using, I didn't notice that the markings, I was actually putting a little bit too much flour. So it probably turned out even better had I put a bit less flour into it. But Regardless, it was a great loaf. We ate it. It was wonderful. And it was our first French loaf that came out nice. The first one, like I said, the yeast was not good, so it did not turn out very well. It was very, very dense and not very good. But this one was great. So I did slice it a little bit too thick. I was just in a hurry. I wanted to put it away quickly. But the kids were like, Mom, like, seriously? That's really thick slices. Anyway, I'll do a better job next time I make the loaf. I will try to cut it smaller, but allow it to cool properly before cutting it, because it is quite difficult to cut it. And I have a pretty good knife that I use, but still I found it, like, because it is quite, you know, soft and fluffy, it was a little bit hard to cut. So allow it to cool off a bit before you start chopping it up. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. I wish you guys can smell my house. Oh my goodness. So it's just in the warming stage right now. It stays warm for an hour. And so, yeah, it's still on. Hamilton Beach. This is the mini, like I had said earlier. I didn't want something that was so big, and this one seems to be really good. It literally slid right out. Like, wow. Okay, I need two hands. Okay guys, it literally slid right out. I just turned it over, and because it's still warm, it literally just slid right out. So perfect non-stick, no issues with getting it out at all. So this loaf turned out really, really nice. I really, really like it. And this was a medium setting. That's what the recipe said I should use, so that's what I've been following. But if you like your crust a little bit darker, then I would just suggest going the darker route. But again, you have 3 options on this mini one. I'm not sure how the really large one works, and if you have more options on that. But I think I have way more options than I probably will end up using on this little guy. And like I said, these loaves are perfect size for me. So if you think that you go through more bread, then maybe you want the Hamilton Beach, the larger Breadmaker, because that will work better for you. So I prefer the smaller one. That works for us, and again, it works perfectly, and I'm really, really happy with this Hamilton Beach model. So yeah, I'm going to try customizing a few different ones. I'm going to make a whole wheat one this week, so I will share how that one works out. I don't have a recipe for whole wheat bread yet. If you guys have one that you want to suggest, throw it my way. I'd be really happy. So I'm going to try that because I do have organic whole wheat flour. So I'm going to try that. And I also want to make a flax loaf as well, just because I would like my son to have a little bit more flax in his diet. And he eats a lot of bread. So he's the bread eater in this house. So I'm going to try to make him a loaf with a lot of flax in it. And I'll let you know how that one goes as well. So this Hamilton Beach bread maker, like I said, it warms things up for an hour. So it was warming, you know, and it smelled amazing in the house. And then I came into the kitchen. I found King just sitting there sniffing the air. He was basically drooling because he knew something delicious was in the works and maybe Mom would share some. So he was just sitting right beside me, just hoping that, you know, as I cut my bread, I would give him a little piece, and I did give him a little so he could try. Poor guy looked so depressed because he had been sitting there for so long, just waiting patiently for this bread or whatever the good, yummy smelling food was to see if he can get a little morsel. So I was just trying to cut this loaf into smaller slices like my children had requested, but it was still a little bit too hot, so I had to wait for it to fully cool before I can continue cutting it. But that's pretty much it. The recipe worked great, and again, I'm really happy with the bread maker. The recipe worked out perfect. It was nice and fluffy and delicious. Everyone loved it in the house. And yeah, so that is it for today's video. I hope you liked it. I hope it helped you in some way. And if you start baking bread and you want to share some recipes with me, I totally appreciate it. Thanks so much for being here. Take care, everyone, and I will see you in the next video. Stay healthy.